6B gardeners, if you're tired of starting seeds too early, too late, or wasting entire trays of seedlings, this is the video that'll help fix that. Today I'm going to build a 2026 seed starting calendar copy for your own garden, step by step, so you can finally start seeds at the right time and actually get the harvest you planned for. Welcome back to Carter's Gardens. I'm Jake, and this is episode 1 of my 2026 garden game plan series for Zone 6B. In this series, we're going to fix 3 big problems that I see all the time: wasted seeds, bad layouts, and timing that just don't match our hot summers and cold winters. And today we're starting with the foundation, which is of course going to be our 2026 gardening calendar to help us plan our entire growing season. And this calendar is going to tell you when to start seeds indoors, when to direct sow, and how to do succession sowing to keep your garden beds full, happy, and healthy. So grab a handy dandy calendar, a notebook, and plan along with me. Before we write anything down, we need one key number, which is of course our last frost date. For Zone 6B, you can relatively bet that it's probably going to be around April 15th. And if you're not in Zone 6B, there's a really easy way to figure out what your exact last frost date is. And as we're going through, I'll show you how to adjust your own calendar to match your own frost date. So the super simple way to figure out exactly last frost date is to jump on Google, type in your zone area, and ask when your last frost date is. You can grab a farmer's almanac. It'll also tell you in there. Now, if you're not in Zone 6B, go ahead and look up your frost date, and however many weeks off you are mine, go ahead and use that as your slider. So the first thing we're going to write down is, of course, last frost day on April 15th. The big idea is simple. Instead of guessing, we say this crop needs 6 to 8 weeks before last frost, and then we count back on the calendar. Let's start building this calendar. On page, you're going to want to, of course, know what crop you're going to be growing. And for today's demonstration, we're going to be, of course, using Upland Crest from MI Gardener. We'll have to know what our weeks before last frost date is, which is, of course, indoors, 2 to 3 weeks before last frost. So if we're going to do that, we're going to go from April 15th to 1, 2, 3, which would be the 25th. We can just put Upland Crest seed starting. Then write down if it's a direct sow or if it's a indoor starting, which of course our seed package tells us that we can start this one indoors. You don't need a fancy spreadsheet for this. A pen and a paper works just fine, and you'll actually use it. Now all we're going to do is plug and chug the rest of our crops into the calendar itself. When you're planning this calendar in general, the first thing you should think of is the crops that you're actually going to eat. Now let's plug in a few of the core crops most Zone 6B gardens grow. Adjust this list for what you like to eat, but I'll show you my basics. First up is, of course, tomatoes, because it's just everybody's garden favorite. So we're going to go back to April 15th. And most varieties of tomatoes do great if you start them 6 to 8 weeks before last frost. With my last frost around April 15th, that puts tomato seed starting in late February, early March 2026. I'm going to write, we're going to do 8 weeks because I'm actually going to succession sow these throughout the year to try a few different things for the tomatoes that I'm growing this year. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we're going to say February 18th. Tomatoes will start indoors. And something that you can put on your notes if you so choose is that you'll probably need to up pot tomatoes at least once if you're starting at an 8-week range. Closer to 6 weeks, you might be fine. I would say about at the 4-week mark, you're going to want to look at them to see if they're starting to get root bound, because once they get root bound, they're going to struggle when you go to transplant them. Next up is peppers, which are of course slower. I like to give them about 10 weeks. That pushes them earlier into February. With the tomatoes being right there, we know that it's 8 weeks, so we can go back to February 4th to start peppers, which is of course going to put our start date at February 4th. A little bonus tip for sowing pepper seeds indoors: if you have a heat mat, this is a perfect plant to use it because they do prefer the warmer soil for germination. Then a cool crop like broccoli, which is, we have the Waltham 29. I'm still working on how to grow broccoli really well, but sooner or later I will be a professional. Broccoli, you're going to want to start 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost, which is going to put us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to be planting this early, which of course is going to put us at February 18th with our lovely tomatoes. Now the good news about broccoli is we won't have to up pot it, because around the time that we get to our last frost date will be the time that it'll be about ready to transplant outside. And due to the fact that it can handle a frost or two and cooler weather, we don't really have to mess with up potting. So we're going to put broccoli indoors. And as you add crops, don't stress about being perfect. What matters is that everything is anchored to your frost date, not a random guess. Now let's add a few things we don't start indoors but still need on the calendar. Take peas. In Zone 6B, I like to direct sow peas about 4 to 6 weeks before last frost, as soon as soil can be worked for 2026. That means roughly early to mid-March for peas. We're just going to write peas and then direct sow, which would be March 18th. And it'll be the same idea with carrots. I usually do 2 to 4 weeks before last frost. So that goes in late March, early April. So we're going to go ahead and put carrots in as well. Now our calendar is starting to cover both indoor and outdoor seed starting. And while we're here, we can go ahead and add succession sowing. So if we wanted to try to grow peas and carrots all season long, we could go ahead and go 2 to 3 weeks after our first sowing, which would of course put us 1, 2 at April 8th. We can just write carrot session and then peas session. Now the only fairy warning I want to put in here is the warmer it gets, the less likely the peas are going to do well. We will succession sow them, but once it starts getting into, July, you're going to start seeing a lot less production out of them. Carrots, they'll still be productive whenever it starts getting into the warmer months, but then instead of being sweeter, they'll be more starchy. Our big one for us, specifically in Zone 6B, will of course be March. So this is kind of how ours look. We've got cabbage bed prep, collards bed prep, leeks bed prep. I mean, pretty well down everything in here. I do the bed prep, which if you're going to do your bed prep, what I do is a week before I think that I'm going to be transplanting, I'll put in the bed prep. And then the following weeks, I'll be planting. That way, 1 week you'll be working nothing but soil for bed prep. Then the following week, you'll come in and do the transplanting. And the reason that works for us is we have, I think it was close to 20, 25 rows. So if I bed prep all 25 rows at once, that's going to be pretty well an all-day affair. Then when it comes down to transplanting, it's going to be a pretty well all-day affair transplanting or direct sowing, because we're going to have to get water, haul it in, and water everything that we planted in. Whenever I do mine, I also add bed prep, cultivating, direct sow, and transplanting. How we're going to stagger this, in January, about the 11th, we'll be doing celery, leeks, and onions. Also, later on in the month, we'll do parsley. Then you've got, of course, peppers, kale, Swiss chard, things like that in February. March is, of course, our heavy hitter, because we'll be doing a lot of direct sowing, a lot of bed prep, and a lot of transplanting. Kind of slowed down in April, still have a whole bunch to do, but we still have a lot to add to this calendar in general for us. You can pretty well already see that this is how we're going to keep from waking up in May and be like, oh no, I never started peppers. It's on paper, we can see it, so that way we know exactly what's going on when. And you can check this weekly if it's up on the wall. If your last frost isn't exactly the same as mine, don't worry, this still works. 2 simple rules. Find your own average last frost date, slide all these dates forward or backwards by the same amount. If your last frost date is 2 weeks later than mine, just bump every seed starting date 2 weeks later on your own 2026 calendar. Same idea. If you know you have a weird microclimate, windy hills, sheltered urban yard, whatever, you could shift a few days based on experience, but this gives you a rock solid starting point. And that's why I like doing this calendar and having the notebooks, as well as the things that I have on my phone for it, is I can look at this and compare it to my notes in the notebook and on my phone, and we can adjust to see if we can come in a week earlier, or if we need to come in a week later, or what time a year randomly plants got toast. That way we know, hey, this week these are probably going to be garbage. We can plan a succession sowing of different crops or the same crops. This seed starting calendar is the base layer for my whole 2026 garden plan in Zone 6B. In the next episode, we're going to take this calendar and answer the question, okay, but how many plants do I actually need to start? So if you don't want to drown in zucchini or in the year wishing you had planted more tomatoes, make sure you subscribe and watch episode 2 when it drops. If you built your own 2026 calendar along with me, drop a comment with your last frost date and what crop you're most excited to grow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part of 2026 Garden Game Plan.